Ready?
Steady.
Go. Here at Lloyds Banking Group, there's no such thing as just an apprentice. I'm in a position to say whether our products are fair, ethical and designed to help Britain prosper.
That moment when you realise you're in a team managing over £150 billion in funds.
It isn't all finance all the time. I led a partnership with Macmillan to help our customers access better cancer care.
Everyone knows you can trust Lloyds. I've seen our bold sustainability commitments and every day I see us following through.
1 minute I'm leaving uni with my sports science degree. The next I'm in a room thinking of ideas to help millions of families during the pandemic.
I work in financial crime, international sanctions. As you can imagine, it's a pretty interesting place to be right now.
1 minute you're reading about the cost of living crisis and the next you're writing a briefing paper on it.
Off the back of my dissertation on DevOps pipelines, I went into an engineering role and now I'm rolling it out company-wide.
We all got million subscription nowadays, so my team built a tool that helps 18 million customers manage them in our app.
When it's not developing with React or Redux, it's gaming with the other grads or the odd night out.
I couldn't be prouder of my outreach work through Lloyds, helping school-age girls and non-binary people get into coding.
My next step, go for an associate director role, either in my team or something new and exciting. How's that for a rotation?
Hi everyone, and welcome to National Apprentice Week 2024. It's that time of year again where people in England and Wales go a little bit crazy, sharing our love for apprenticeships and helping those still at school to better understand this amazing way through which you can develop your career.
There are so many events and occasions happening right now across the country, it's hard to keep a track of everything. Here at Lloyds Banking Group, we do all of those events, and at the end of each day, we bring it together in a live show called The Daily Download.
Introducing myself this evening, I'm Phil, apprentice from here at Lloyds.
And I'm Holly Evans, also an apprentice here at Lloyds Banking Group. Every day this week, we're hosting a 5 p.m. live show called The Daily Download. But today we have a whole hour to catch up on what's happening across National Apprenticeship Week. And our focus is on how to ace your apprenticeship application.
For years and years, if you wanted to go to uni, there was the UCAS process. Your parents might have been through it. Your teachers almost certainly have gone through it. One single place to apply. Everyone knows how it works. Everyone knows how to support you. But when it comes to apprenticeships, that support looks and feels very different.
An apprenticeship is a real job with training, and that means the process of applying for one is not that different to applying to a real job. And for many young people, this is all a first time and very rigorous experience that you may be undertaking alongside studying for your final exams. We know it opens up a lot of questions.
It can also be very competitive. There isn't a clearing system for apprenticeships, or as yet a one-stop application process. So performing at your best and organising your applications is very important. To illustrate this, why don't you have a guess in the chat of the hundreds of thousands of students that applied to uni last year? What proportion got their first ideal choice of uni or college?
This is where it gets interesting. Start to see the numbers coming through in the chat. So we've got 30%, 15%, 20%, 38%. So we're sitting at around 20 to 30%. So I get the opportunity to tell you the answer. So drum roll, please. It's actually 79%. In other words, 4 in every 5 students got exactly what they wanted. And yet when it comes to apprenticeships, it's not unusual to have over 1,000 people who are competing for just a handful of positions. This can feel really tough, as more than 4 out of 5 students won't get what they've applied for.
But before you get downhearted, compared to the university application process, there are a few things in your favour. Number one, unlike an application for university, you can apply to as many apprenticeships as you like. Number two, you're able to apply to multiple apprenticeships and university at the same time. Number three, apprenticeships become available all year round. So you're not limited to applying at a specific point in the year. And if I sneak in a cheeky fourth, some people go on to do an apprenticeship after they've been to university, and that's okay too. The only rule is you can't study something you've already completed your degree in.
Tonight in Careers Live, we're going to be exploring how to ace your apprenticeship application. When we say that, what we mean is being your very best. Of course, you can't know what you're up against on the day or that you'll be successful in your very first application. But by bringing together industry experts as well as apprentices like ourselves that have gone through this process, our aim is to bring you practical insight that you can put into action. And this will enable you to shine and be the best version of yourself, which is all anyone can ask of you.
Before we do that, as you mentioned at the top of the live stream, this is National Apprenticeship Week. And every day this week, we catch up with the key events that have been taking place on this Tuesday of National Apprenticeship Week 2024.
And a quick word on accessibility. If you benefit from closed captioning, you can enable that in Zoom, or if you're watching us on YouTube Live, then you can do that over there also. Phil, let's check the mood out there. See how everyone's feeling about acing their apprenticeship application with 2 quick questions. A poll should appear on your screen, so it'd be good to see the numbers coming in.
See, we've got 20, 40, 50, it's shooting up fast. Over 100 answers so far, and climbing.
Quite a lot of people feeling quite confident. It's good to see. Sitting at around 7, 8. Hopefully that can be a 9 or 10 by the end of the live stream.
Fingers crossed. So that was poll 1, and we've got, now it's time for poll 2. If you feel like Lloyds Banking Group could be the right company for you.
Got a lot of people sitting in 10, which is good to see. Got over half of the students feeling number 10. So feeling very confident that Lloyds could be the right company for them, which is really good to see.
We love to see that. So 56% of you gave a 10. Looking forward to seeing some of you here when you join. So it's time to catch up on what's been happening around the country today in National Apprenticeship Week. Our job theme for today is data and analytics. This is a rapidly growing career space, not just for the mathematicians. Becky Cohen is a year 1 apprentice in data science and analytics, and we caught up with Becky a little earlier to find out more about careers in this fast growing field and much in demand.
Hi everyone, I'm Becky, I'm 23 and I'm a London-based apprentice on the Level 4 Data Analyst Apprenticeship. I am a data analyst in the Chief Digital Office, so we look at digital banking, which includes the website and the mobile app. So we track customers' online applications and use this data to optimise and personalise their experience with us. On my apprenticeship, I learn the knowledge, skills and behaviours required for my role, and I'm able to put them into practice on the job. I have 1 day a week dedicated to spend doing things like reading, shadowing and just working generally on my apprenticeship. I have been to uni, I studied psychology, and having done both, it's a good way for me to compare both. Uni is definitely essay heavy, and I had a lot of people, about 400 people on my course in my year, so therefore it was very competitive and very hard to get practical experience. Whereas an apprenticeship is more personal and interactive, and you end up with no student debt at the end of it. But you also do learn on the job, and there's a lot of support for you, everyone's happy to help you, and it's a lot more interactive. Compared to what I thought I'd be doing when I was doing my GCSEs, it definitely wasn't this. Back then I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I did have the idea of going to uni. But if I knew back then what I know now, I probably would have explored apprenticeships as an option, as an alternative, because they weren't as talked about back then. And I never expected to have an office job, but I do love the social side and meeting new people. The apprenticeship has taught me a lot of things about myself. I think it's really good to push yourself outside of your comfort zone and do things that you've not done before, because it's a good way to learn and be more comfortable in the future. Organisation is definitely key because you are in charge of your own time, and I really like that you've got the independence but also the support of your team when you need it. And there's always so much to learn, so having a curious mindset is just the best way to be. Asking lots of questions is the best way to learn. In terms of aspirations for the future, short term I would love to continue to learn and improve my skills within my role, and where data is such a growing part of the industry at the moment, it's a really good place to learn, and I feel like there's a lot more I can be learning. In terms of longer term, maybe to explore other areas of the bank that have interested me, because there's a lot to learn there too.
Really great to hear from Becky and get her insight into apprenticeships. Now, as National Apprenticeship Week falls in February, when the weather is either freezing, wet, windy, or all three at the same time, it's the perfect time to be sending out our apprentices into schools and colleges to tell their story and help younger students develop. Today, we sent our colleagues Tash and Nofi out at Finchley Heath Roman Catholic Boys' School, just outside London, so hi to all of you there. In our Harbourside Tech and Data Hub in Bristol, we had special guest students from Bristol Cathedral Choir School and a visit from the school's minister, Damien Hines.
Now for our Crime Fighter Challenge. A crime has been committed and we need your help to solve it. Every day this week, our investigator, Justin Case, will be giving you clues on financial crime in progress. It's a bit of fun, but it's also something our apprentices in risk working in the Economic Crime Division do get involved in. If you missed out on yesterday's clues, you can catch everything on YouTube and download the evidence pack from the chat. And here's Justin with today's piece of the puzzle.
We're already a day in, and the trail is hotting up. If we didn't meet up yesterday, then I'm Justin Case, private detective. Just to go over a few facts so far. I'm tracking down a financial crime in progress. I think there's a scam of some kind going on, and I need your help to solve it. I know a lot of it's been happening on social media channels. Scanning Instagram, I found a post from someone called Sunita Sandhu, who's been buying herself all kinds of luxury gear, thanking another Instagram account under the name of Jack Johnson 18. Now Jack, assuming that's his real name of course, has been out there advertising get-rich-quick schemes and easy money. I've not quite worked out what he's up to, but with so many likes on his post, he's clearly attracting a lot of attention. I was going through some old case files because something hit me about this case, something I'd seen last year. And then I found it. It was a letter from a concerned parent, Wendy Wilson. She wrote a letter to her bank asking if they could help her with her son, Jay. Jay's a student at university and normally short of cash, but lately he's been splurging on designer clothes. Wendy checked his room one day whilst he was out and found bundles of cash. When Jay got back, she challenged him on all this extra cash, and he got quite defensive and said it was money his friend JJ had given him to look after. I took the opportunity to drop into a chat forum where there were other worried parents, all parents of teenagers, who were describing pretty much the same thing. Something seems to be going on, and it's hooking in a lot of young people. That's as far as I've got for Tuesday.
Great to hear from our detective Justin Case again. When you apply for an apprenticeship, you really want to stand out. And throughout this week, we've been catching up with senior leaders across Lloyds Banking Group to understand what they're looking for in their next hire. Here's Jack Parr to tell us his thoughts.
When I'm recruiting apprentices for my business area, there are three things I look for: a willingness to learn, a growth mindset, and an alignment to our group values and behaviours. These three things set the apprentice up for the best chance of success within role and allows them to make an impact within role straight away. I also love having apprentices in my business area because they often come from unconventional backgrounds. This really helps us provide a diverse voice to shape our products and what we deliver to customers. It really helps us to look at things differently.
Some really helpful insight from Jack there. Now, when you're at school, it often feels like you're being asked to decide what to do with your whole life ahead of you. So from one Jack to another, we asked our apprentices what advice they'd give their younger self. And here's Jack Bailey with his thoughts.
Hi, I'm Jack Bailey and I work as a software engineer at Lloyds Banking Group. If I could give my younger self some advice, it would definitely be to not just assume that everything will fall into place. I went to university for a year. I thought that was the right option. It was the option that both my parents and my school had presented to me as the right choice after my A-levels. But I'm now in over £15,000 of debt, and that pathway just wasn't for me. It was the pathway that, as a 15, 16-year-old, was planted in my head, and I never really gave other opportunities a chance. I didn't really have the opportunity to explore them, and that was only 5 years ago. I assumed that university would be fine. I'd get a degree and fall straight into a junior role as a computer scientist of some form, but I didn't really understand the job market, and I didn't know what I'd enjoy doing within the field of computing. And truthfully, at the time, I wasn't really bothered about it. And I really wish I had been. But looking back on it, I really wish that I'd just spent a little bit of time understanding the opportunities that were out there for me, as well as university. So I definitely would tell my younger self not to take the idea and comfort that comes with university and run with it. Try to understand yourself. Try to understand what you really enjoy doing, what you love doing, what you want to do as a job. And if that's academia, then maybe university is the right choice. If you want to spend a long time studying and researching, then university is a brilliant option for that. But apprenticeships are just one of the great ways outside of university that can help you boost your career, help you boost your employability, and help you boost your confidence as well.
Some great thoughts there from Jack, and that leads us brilliantly into the main part of Careers Live for this evening, which is how to ace your apprenticeship application.
Now, every employer designs their own application process, but lots of them are quite similar, and they use quite similar principles. Recruitment is something employers take very seriously, and on tonight's Careers Live, we want to explore the stages of recruitment and how assessment processes are designed and what employers are looking for, so you can see that and you can ace that application.
I think that's an important point to stress. Recruitment costs a lot of money. Employers do take it seriously, and they want to understand every person's strengths, skills, and potential. So here's Catherine Marshall, Senior Manager for Apprenticeships at Lloyds Banking Group, to share her thoughts in an interview we recorded earlier with our colleague Ian.
So hi everybody, it's Ian here, and I hope you're having a great event. And I just wanted to take this time to introduce you to Catherine Marshall, who's Senior Manager responsible for apprenticeships. So given that we're tonight talking about how to ace your apprenticeship application, then it was entirely logical to introduce Catherine to you. So Catherine, I know we kind of gave a job title. I wonder if you can give like everybody a flavour for actually what is it that you do? Because I think it's more than just apprenticeships inside Lloyds as well. You've got some roles with the wider apprenticeship movement.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And brilliant to be here in National Apprenticeship Week as well. So I look after the team in Lloyds Banking Group who deliver all of our different apprenticeship programmes. We have 30 different apprenticeship programmes that we offer from level 2 all the way up to level 7. And we deliver that end-to-end experience. So this is focused on the recruitment side of it. So it obviously starts with recruitment, goes on to onboarding, that programme delivery, all the way through to celebrating success at the end and that onwards career progression. And externally as well, I'm the co-vice chair of the Apprenticeship Ambassador Network. So I love to talk about apprenticeships day in, day out, and being part of the Ambassador Network, we get to go out to different schools, to different employers, and really encourage them to get involved with apprenticeships.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, isn't it? Because when we host a show like tonight on how to ace your apprenticeship application, what we're doing is we're not just trying to inform you about how does Lloyds do these things, which of course we know really, really well, but because we're part of this wider movement of apprenticeships, we try to act responsibly for the wider movement, not just what Lloyds Banking Group once. So I know we've got really limited time because I could kind of like do the whole hour just on this one. So when we think about the Lloyds recruitment process that people may be looking at, because we've got some live vacancies out there already in there, what are the key things that we're looking to kind of assess through the process?
So I'd probably break that down into two different areas. So we look to assess people's motivation and we look to assess their strengths. So if I talk about motivation first of all, and I'd probably look at this through a number of different lenses and be really clear about what organisation you want to work for and why. And I'd start off kind of thinking about, do I want to work for a large organisation which might have different career opportunities for me? Or do I want to work for a smaller organisation that really makes a difference in my local community? And once you've kind of got that pretty clear in your mind, it's then kind of working out what organisation do I want to work for? So is it financial services? Is it the public sector? Is it a construction industry? What would really float my boat? And so then when you know what industry you want to work in, it's then homing in on the organisation and really kind of doing your research and understanding what's Lloyds Banking Group all about? And actually, does that organisation align to what I'm all about as well? Or actually, do I look at a different organisation like Barclays, NatWest, HSBC, because they might align more to my purpose and my values? So I think it's being really clear on the organisation and why. And then the other element is you're applying for an apprenticeship. So really have a think about, why do you want to do an apprenticeship rather than go down a different route, go to university or perhaps get a job? So what is it about an apprenticeship that really appeals to you? Is it about the fact that you can apply your learning straight away, or is it about the fact that you're going to get a professional qualification? So be really clear with why an apprenticeship. And then it's the specific apprenticeship that you're applying for. So the area that you want to work in, so whether that's data analytics, whether that's HR, whether it's cybersecurity, what appeals to you about that and why? And being really clear, because those kinds of questions will definitely come up in any interview you do, whether that's for Lloyds Banking Group or another organisation. And then the other element I talked about was strengths. And a strength is something that you are really passionate about. So that comes across. A strength is something that you are good at and that you really enjoy doing. And so what I'd probably do as part of your preparation for any application is just take a little bit of time of thinking about, what would I say my key strengths are? And when have I actually demonstrated those strengths as well? And I would also say, don't rely on yourself. I think we can all be quite coy about what our strengths are. So ask your family, ask your friends, ask your teachers. Ask them to say to you what they think your key strengths are. And also, when do you demonstrate those strengths?
Yeah, sometimes we talk about when we do this in work experience, we sometimes, a good starting point might think about, what are those moments when people come to you for something? What do you always find yourself as in your gang or your team or whatever it is? What do you find yourself being the one who's doing? Because it's usually a good indicator of what people already recognize you as being good at, the go-to person for
Absolutely.
something. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the point on motivation, because of course we have to remember that, you spend a lot of time at work. So you want it to be a place that you really, really enjoy. So I know sometimes it feels like the task in hand is school is coming to an end, and I need to find a job. I need to find a job. But actually, we spend more time with our work colleagues than we spend with our family. So you want to make it a place that's really going to count, and a place where you can thrive as well, which is where motivation is not just something for passing the interview, but also is something for yourself to make you really be sure that it's actually going to be a place where you're super happy.
Absolutely. That application process works both ways. So it's the organisation working out whether you're going to be a good fit, but it's you also working out whether you're going to be a good fit. And actually, if you don't think you can answer those motivation questions, I'd question whether it is the right job for you.
Yeah. So I know, sadly, our time is really, really limited. So this process, can go on for quite a long time, can't it? And sometimes it's quite difficult to predict exactly when. So is there any way we can kind of help people understand, how long an apprenticeship application process might take, but also the kind of things that they can be doing to kind of keep in touch and keep being prepared throughout the process?
And it can feel like a lengthy process. So we went live with these vacancies in January. So if you were one of the first to apply and then you're not going to start until September, that's quite a long time. But what we will do is keep in touch with you and keep you informed with what's going on with it. So, for example, how much time you've got to complete the online tests and what the next stage is. And what I'd also encourage you to do is to register on our Imagine What's Next platform, because we've got a number of digital mentors on that platform, and they've gone through the process, the very same process that you're going through. So you can reach out to them at any point saying, I've got my online test coming up, or what happens after this? Or actually, I've just been invited to the assessment centre. What can I expect? So definitely log on to that platform if you haven't already. We're going to give the details of it, and make the most of those mentors on that platform.
Yeah, brilliant. And you'll see the link appearing in the chat. And then later tonight on Lloyds Careers Live, then you'll be hearing from Rachel and Caitlin and Robbie, and they'll talk about their journey through this as well, not just with Lloyds, but also with other employers, to give you a better feel for the picture. Catherine, I always feel like we could just keep talking and talking, but the producers are going to cut our time. But thank you so much for joining us on Careers Live this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to dig in a bit deeper into some of the specific elements of an application process. And here joining me this evening is Mark Benbow from a company called Capfinity.
Hi there.
Hi, Mark. So who are Capfinity and what do they do?
Well, in summary, we help employers such as Lloyds identify students who are the best match for the roles that they have available. So this usually means understanding more about each student through an assessment process to see how well matched they are to the skills, the values, the motivations that the employer is looking for. We work really closely with our clients, so even when you use our technology or connect with our people, it should still very much feel like a Lloyds experience.
So many companies use strength and cognitive assessments. Could you explain a little bit more about these and what they're used for?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we take the Lloyds process as an example, we're assessing a few different types of skills. So these are typically cognitive skills, behavioural skills, and sometimes technical skills as well for the technology roles in particular. Cognitive assessments are things like verbal reasoning or identifying answers through numerical calculations. And then behavioural strengths assessments can be quite varied, but they're really looking to understand things a bit more like communication skills or teamwork, usually through scenarios that are really closely related to the job and the type of work you would be doing. Usually employers are looking at overall performance across these different areas, although sometimes there might be a minimum requirement on something like numerical ability if it's really important for the role.
So with all these tests, I mean, what's the best way to prepare for these? Because I'm sure that feeling nervous is quite normal when you're completing assessments.
Yeah, of course, it's completely normal to feel nervous, but most companies now have a lot of information on their career site about each stage of the process, what you need to do. Many employers, including Lloyds, are providing like preparation sites that you can access with things like practice tests, and they're really close to the real thing that you would be doing. So the best thing you can do is read everything that you get sent and do your own research on the career site, and then try and build your confidence through some of those practice examples. When you're doing an assessment, it's always best to respond truthfully rather than trying to second guess what you think the answer should be, because being authentic is really important. And then when you're actually completing those online assessments, make sure you're feeling really well prepared physically and mentally. Find a comfortable and quiet space where you won't be distracted, and maybe aim for a time of day when you know that you feel at your best. And if you think you might get thirsty, for example, have a drink available so that you're not affected by that.
Now, Mark, when we speak with students, one element that they tell us that they're particularly nervous about is the video interview, and particularly the one where you're speaking into a camera and nobody's responding back to you. So I just wanted to know if we could get some insight into why do employers use this approach and how can they really assess someone in this way?
Yeah, so it's completely understandable that it can feel daunting to do a video interview like that. The number of applications that employers get, it's really, really difficult to run live interviews kind of midway through the process before you get to that final stage. So part of it is around efficiency, but also it's a great way for employers to learn a lot more about the people that are applying for the jobs. So the questions are usually really reflective of the type of work that you would be doing on the job. So for example, a question might be about how you would handle a difficult customer. So they work really well in helping the company to get more detail on what you would do in that situation and how you would respond to that. So reviewing your thinking on something like this provides really helpful data about your strengths for that company.
And given that there's no sort of immediate feedback, what's the best way to prepare and perform through this particular process?
So as Catherine and Ian were talking about just a minute ago, it's really great to think in advance about what you're good at and examples that you can refer to, whether those are from school or from sports or from maybe work experience or charity work that you've done. You'll usually have a bit of time to prepare for each question when you're going through that interview, but preparing in advance is going to make it much easier to think about, okay, there's an example that I can draw on and bring that into my response. So naturally as well, students might feel nervous just with the technology that they're using because it might be a platform that they're not familiar with. So do your own research, because often you can find that you can have a go at engaging with that platform before you go and do the real thing. So that can really help just settle those nerves from a technology perspective. And then finally, you usually have a specific amount of time to respond to each question. So it's really good to be familiar with how much you can say in that amount of time. So find some practice video interview questions online, practice on your own, practice with your family or friends, but have a go at kind of speaking out a response for 2 minutes about something like teamwork and see what you can get through in that time so you feel more comfortable.
That's incredibly helpful information, Mark. I know that we're short on time, but let's talk about another dreaded topic. That'll be assessment centres.
Sure.
So this will be very different for each employer, but I wonder if you could help us understand what is an assessment centre and the kind of things students can expect to do in one.
Yeah, so each employer will have their own approach to an assessment centre, but there's usually some quite common activities that can take place there. So one would be some form of interview with one person, or sometimes with a couple of people, where they're asking questions about your skills that are relevant to the role, but also about motivation, like Catherine talked about, things that excite you about the role or the company. Another quite common activity will be a group exercise, where maybe you'll be working on a specific task with a group, with a number of other candidates, and you'll be assessed about how you're approaching working with them or communicating. And then beyond those, there's different types of individual activities. There might be role plays, maybe where you've actually got a difficult customer that you're having to interact with and deal with, and someone's playing the role of that customer, or it might be something like a presentation.
So in addition to practicing role plays, how else do you think people can prepare for these type of experiences? Do you have any other hints and tips?
So again, usually if you're reaching this stage of the process, employers are now really good at providing a lot of information in advance about what to expect on the day. So make sure you thoroughly read everything that's sent in advance and take advantage of things like drop-in sessions. So I know Lloyds, as an example, runs webinars in advance of the assessment centre so that people can come along and learn more about what they'll need to do and ask questions. So those are the best things that you can really do at this point, just to learn more about the experience and have the chance to ask your questions.
And as we already said in the chat, we do like people who are keen on learning, so that should be part of the fun. Do you have any final words of advice or guidance for our audience this evening on acing their apprenticeship application?
So I think we've talked quite a lot about understanding your own strengths, motivation, and feeling well prepared to discuss these things with other people. We've also talked about doing your research and preparing in advance, especially when those dedicated preparation resources are provided by the employer. It's a no-brainer not to not take advantage of that. To get a flavour of how helpful these sites can be, I'd encourage you to have a look at the one on the Lloyds Careers site and try out the content, whether you're applying or not. And then finally, if you're not sure about something as you go through the process, really don't be afraid to ask. There's people there at the end of an email or at the end of a phone to help you.
Mark, thank you so much. It's incredibly helpful to be able to get your insight, not just for applications for Lloyds Banking Group, but more broadly for those planning on applying to other apprenticeships too. Over in the chat, we've put a link to Practice Zone. This is a space we've created for you if you're applying for roles at Lloyds Banking Group, but it has some really helpful examples of each stage of recruitment. If you prepared, then you'll be putting yourself already ahead of many other applicants. So let's catch up now with some of our apprentices. Time is flying by, so just like an assessment centre, we'll need their answers to be brief and to the point. And first up, we've got Rachel.
Hi, you're right.
Hi, Rachel. So first of all, it'd be really great if you could tell us about you and the apprenticeship that you're on.
Yeah, so I joined the group in September 2020, so I've been here for 3.5 years now on the Level 7 Internal Audit Degree Apprenticeship. So I'm currently working towards my MSc in Internal Audit and Consulting Management, and I'm also working to gain my Chartered Internal Audit status, also known as your CIA.
And how did you approach actually applying for apprenticeships?
Yeah, so my approach for applying for apprenticeships was actually very different to the average person. My sixth form at the time was very focused on university, so applying for apprenticeships wasn't really a thing for them, wasn't really on their radar, and they didn't really promote it. I actually managed to speak to my accounting teacher, who helped me kind of apply for at least 20, maybe 30 apprenticeships, all within the finance and banking sector. So I think without her help and motivation, I would probably not have found any. So she was the one that actually found this specific apprenticeship for me.
And how did you manage studying and applying for all of those jobs that you just mentioned?
Yeah, it's definitely hard. I was quite lucky. I had free time during my free periods in sixth form to kind of apply for these jobs. It can be super time consuming. I think people really underestimate how long it takes. But I used to set aside at least 2 hours during the application phase. And I would also track every single apprenticeship that I applied for within an Excel spreadsheet. So it meant that kind of I knew who I'd applied for, what I wanted to apply for, and kind of like what stage I was at within each apprenticeship, which made it actually a lot more manageable when you're studying.
And resilience and rejection is a really key part of applying for apprenticeships. So I'd be really interested to know in sort of what kept you standing tall.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate that I actually got 5 good degree apprenticeship offers, but that doesn't mean that I didn't go through rejection a countless number of times. I would say I'm the type of person that is very academic validated. So failing an exam and not getting offers for an apprenticeship I was interested in could be quite a confidence knock for me. So I just had to, the thing that kept me going was knowing that kind of like the right apprenticeship would come my way, and that, you know, you've got to go through rejection to find the right path for yourself. So that mindset, it just comes from having positive people around you, like very confident parents and teachers, when at the time I didn't have that confidence myself. And it's all about taking the positives from the negatives, right? Like, what could I do to improve in my next application, or what did I do that maybe wasn't to a top standard like I normally would, like preparing for an interview, for example. So I think, again, it's just about taking positives from something negative.
Some really good advice in there for sure.
So we're going to keep you on screen, Rachel, and we're going to bring in Robbie as well.
Hi there.
Hi, Robbie. There you are. When you mentioned apprenticeships at your school, everyone thought you meant plumbing and bricklaying. How hard was it not to follow the herd and go to uni?
Well, I think it's a great question because you often find that you get a variety of responses. I had people who were worried because it's a very unconventional path and they were unsure where it could possibly take me. You get some people who believe in apprenticeships, some people who do not. Some may be intrigued and want to find out more. I suppose that for me, it's about trusting that you're making the correct choices for your own career. Because at the end of the day, it's important to remember that it's your journey and you should follow your own path, which may not necessarily be the path everyone else around you is following.
Good answer. What was your experience of assessment centres then? I understand you did a few.
So I found assessment centres to be quite nerve-wracking at first because you feel like everything's just relying on you doing well during this one stage. However, it's important to remember to be yourself during an assessment centre, as your passion for the role should naturally come through. You'll find that the assessment centres have different stages, which are designed to allow you to showcase all the knowledge and skills that you have built up. So if you feel like you haven't performed well at one of the stages, then try not to panic because you will have multiple chances to show off that you are the right candidate for the role. My advice would be to research the organisation's values and the sector of the business you're applying to, because this knowledge can often impress the interviewers.
And clearly you did impress the interviewers, otherwise you wouldn't be here talking with us today. So how did you find the group exercises? We all see shows like The Apprentice, but I guess it's not quite like an audience with almond sugar.
Unfortunately not. It's not as entertaining as the TV show The Apprentice. However, I actually really enjoyed the group exercises because they give you an opportunity to experience what it may be like to work for a team at that company. It also gives you a fantastic opportunity to showcase your teamwork and collaboration skills to the assessor. There's a common myth that the loudest speaker in the group gets hired, and that is not true. It's more important to focus on task, ensure you're contributing to the discussion and making sure that everyone in the group is being included and heard, because that's a very important aspect. Everyone's opinion should count.
And some really key advice there, Robbie. Now, our time might be short, but we did want to squeeze in every piece of value we could get out of our apprentices this evening. So we have not just one, not two, but 3 apprentices to speak with and get all of their experience too. So last, and of course by no means least, we'd like to introduce Caitlin. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi all.
So Caitlin, we heard earlier on that it's likely that at some point in your apprenticeship journey that you're not going to get exactly what you want first time. So how do you put rejection into perspective?
So much like Rachel, I applied to around 20 apprenticeships, so it's quite a lot. One of the key takeaways for me was learning how to deal with rejection, because it's very, very hard to not take things personally, not take rejection as a personal message to you saying you're not good enough. And it was definitely a learning experience because I hadn't received that kind of rejection on that level from loads of different companies. Despite it being really challenging and at times upsetting, honestly, I continued to persevere and I kept turning up to the interviews and the assessments. Like Rachel, it's important to have a positive mindset, a positive attitude to these things. And it's also important to note that rejections aren't necessarily a bad thing. They simply mean that you're not the right fit for that role, what the company's looking for. And that's all right. That's okay.
Yeah, and I think building that resilience is something that's really key throughout the apprenticeship journey too. Now, one of the key messages that's come out of today is this research sector. So ensuring that you're researching the company and the recruitment process, and doing that for the 20 plus companies that you just mentioned sounds really difficult. But you did find ways of using your A-level studies, specifically geography, as part of your research. So it'd be really good to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I studied geography at A-level, and a part of that meant I had to do some independent coursework. And hand in hand with that, I learned a lot about analysing trends and patterns, writing commentary. It definitely helped as an example to mention during the application process, either in the interviews or in the assessments. But so try and use as many examples as you can, I'd say, because it helps to reflect the role that you're applying for. But I would say don't be put off if you don't have a lot of experience, because the assessors know that you might still be young, so they're not expecting a ton of experience.
Yeah, and I think as Mark said earlier, having those examples to hand in the assessment centres is really important. Now, what structures did you adopt to help stay organised throughout the final year of studying and applying to apprenticeships?
So I kept a tracker as well on an Excel spreadsheet. It definitely helped keep me organised, keep on top of what apprenticeships I applied for. So I would have a column of the company name, what the apprenticeship role was, how many years it was, any education requirements that was needed. Because the last thing you want is to forget what company you're applying for in an interview.
Yeah, I think this Excel spreadsheet is definitely a good piece of advice for our aspiring apprentices watching. Caitlin, Robbie, and Rachel, thank you so much for sharing your insight this evening. It's been really valuable, and I'm sure our aspiring apprentices will really appreciate it.
So we do have a little bit of space for questions. If you throw anything for us in the chat, we'll try and answer it.
I think there's been a few questions that I can see Rachel's been answering as well, so thank you for that. Multitasking.
Great. I do like the fact that Rachel and Caitlin, you both mentioned Excel, because that's something that I used as well when I was going through my process. There's never a day when I don't have Excel on. Okay, so I've got one. How would you describe the culture at Lloyds? Who wants to answer that?
I'm happy to answer that. I mean, I've been here 3.5 years now, and honestly, I've not come across like one like not nice person, if that makes sense. I think the culture's great, especially for me doing my master's. It's quite difficult sometimes to manage work and studying, and compared to some organizations, they're a lot more understanding. Like, you know, your exams are a priority as well as your job, but everyone's really understanding if you need a few days for study leave, for example. It's always a given straight away, never been told no, for example. So I think it's great. And obviously the socials and stuff is a massive thing. I think, you know, you get to go out and do networking, even if it's not with Lloyds, sometimes it's with other organizations at events and stuff. So I think it creates quite a good culture and a culture of trust, which is obviously one of our key values here at Lloyds. So yeah.
I like that culture of trust. It's definitely something that I've felt since being here as well. We've got another interesting question in the chat. Have you got any advice for applicants looking for a career change? So is there anyone who's done another couple of jobs before they came to Lloyds? No? Okay, I'll answer this one then. I spent 10 years traveling the world teaching English, and then I spent 5 years working as a chef. And then I found the apprenticeship opportunity. And it was really fantastic to be able to find something that both fit me culturally, but also fit the desire that I had to work in data. And there's no real difference between what I've been able to do and what you guys can do. It doesn't really matter how old you are. It's just about showing that you've got a passion to learn and grow, and you're interested in the field that you're applying to.
I think, as Phil said, it's definitely a myth buster to say that there's a certain age to be doing an apprenticeship, which is definitely not the case. And I know that here at Lloyds, we definitely believe that there's no bad time to be doing an apprenticeship. I think there's one last question in here that people have been asking, which was also about career progression as well. I think Ian answered that question as well. So just interested to hear what kind of goals you have in the future. I know we heard from Becky earlier, she kind of segmented that into shorter and longer term goals, but from the apprenticeship, do any of you have any ideas of sort of career progression and where you'd like to go next?
I'm happy to answer this question. So I'm quite interested to move into a more managerial position, sort of get that experience, see what it's like to be a team manager, for example. going touching on the culture, my area has been very supportive of that. So they've let me lead a project in our area to help me build those leadership skills. So when I come to the end of my apprenticeship and I want to apply for a team leader type position, I already have the examples and some of the skills needed to apply for a role like that.
It's great that they're so supportive of that as well. I think that's definitely something culturally that runs throughout the bank. I know a few people have asked how friendly the environment is that we work in.
It's a very friendly environment. It's not really what I was expecting coming into a bank. I expected that I would find everybody to be very serious, and every day I'm surprised at how essentially loving and kind my colleagues are. I'm happy to come to work. I'm happy to spend time with them, both at work and outside of work. They encourage my development, and they are looking out for me just as much as I'm trying to advance within Lloyds. They're also hoping that I can do the same, and they give me time and support to do that.
Yeah, it's really nice. I definitely think that in all areas of the business that I've come across as well, that definitely runs through. So there's another question about how do people dress and address each other in the office, and how many days are we expected to come to the office in person?
I can answer that question.
Yeah, go for it.
So the dress code, I think, is very, it's not very formal. Of course, you're expected to come in with clothes as a preference,
Smart
but smart casual, exactly. So it's not too formal. And when people are talking, it's very easy to have conversations. They're very willing to open up to you and chat. We've got a kitchen area, which often at lunchtimes people like to just chat and mingle and talk to each other. And at the moment, we're expected to come in twice a week, so it's really flexible in terms of you can work from home, and they're very supportive of that.
Yeah, definitely. Just a quick question as well. Somebody's asked how long we've all been at the bank. Rachel, I know you answered this question earlier, but it'd be good to know from the rest of you. I personally joined in September 2023, so I've only been here 4 months.
I'm the same as well, Holly. I only joined September 2023, so still very new.
Yep, same here. I just joined in September.
And I joined the September before that. And just as an example of what can happen if you apply yourself in the right way, about 12, 13 months after joining Lloyds, so I'm still within my apprenticeship at the moment, I was given the opportunity to have career progression by being given a secondment role. So somebody's going off on maternity leave, and I was promoted into her role, which is definitely an example of what can happen for you if you apply yourself in the right way.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. I'm currently seconded out for secondment for 6 months in group corporate affairs, and obviously my apprenticeship's in internal audit. So it was just kind of an opportunity to kind of figure out exactly what I want to do with my career.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of opportunities despite you being an apprentice. There's been another question here in terms of the style of work. So is it more independent work or is it more group work? Which I think definitely varies apprenticeship to an apprenticeship. So it'd be interesting to kind of hear your hands-on experience. I don't mind taking that one. I would definitely say that there's a blend, which is really nice. I can definitely firmly say that you can lean into what style works best for you. Most line managers are really supportive of that. So if you're somebody who likes working independently, you'll definitely be given the space to do that. But it's really important that you still have the collaboration skills to sort of talk in team meetings and collaborate with others. Equally, if you're somebody who really enjoys that teamwork aspect, most teams are really supportive and really happy for you to get involved. I'd definitely say that being an apprentice here at Lloyds, a lot of people are really happy to help. The second you say that you're an apprentice, everybody's more than happy to help you. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities for collaboration. So yeah, it's all just kind of about what your style of work is, sort of really leaning into your strengths, which is obviously what Catherine mentioned earlier, which I think is really important as well.
Yeah, I agree, Holly. And just to add on to that as well, when you join the bank, you're treated like a full-time colleague. So you're not treated like an apprentice, you're not treated any differently. Everyone's there to support you. There's lots of opportunities. So don't worry about being seen differently or treated differently, because everyone's there to help you at the end of the day.
Definitely.
Yeah, and you've got to remember as well that you get brought in on the strength of how you present yourself in the interview and the assessment, which means that if you do prefer working a little bit, prefer working individually or prefer working in a group, we already know what it is that you're strong at, and we're looking to improve and lean into that.
Definitely. Somebody's asked a question of a specific example that one of us has done to stand out in our role. Phil, I know you mentioned, and Rachel, that you had opportunities to cover on secondment, so it would be good to know if there's anything specific or any examples that you could give that allowed you to really stand out in your role.
First, Rachel.
Or you, Caitlin. Go for it.
I'll go first. So actually just today, someone reached out to me asking if I could do a talk to their team on what it's like being an apprentice, because we do a lot of career talks, lunch and learns within our teams. So they reached out to me. I don't know this person, but it just goes to show the amount of networking you can do and the potential to meet other people by being an apprentice. And it reinforces what everyone's been saying today. Everyone's really eager and willing to support you and learn more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of similar. You know, I lead on one of the financial literacy programs for schools that are struggling within Hertfordshire. So for me, that was kind of like a big networking opportunity to go about, talk to people, etc. I think because I switch teams every 6 months anyway on my program, so it allows me to meet stakeholders, so many different stakeholders who you get some that really stand out to you as well. So you go off and you build them relationships off the back of that. And that was kind of what led me to my secondment, is, you know, being able to build them stakeholder relationships at the time when you're doing your audit. And then you can kind of, off the back of that, go and build them relationships even further and get the job opportunities too.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. You mentioned stakeholder relationship, and that's very, very important in our role. And might sound like a big word to some people. What's stakeholder relationship? It's just how you interact with people, how you treat them, how you respond to the requests that they put through, and how consistent you are with the quality of your work. And it's definitely key to having a success here at Lloyds. But most of you will already have great skills for how you're dealing with family, how you deal with friends. So very transferable. We are almost out of time. And of course, so I do want to say thank you to Robbie, Rachel, and Caitlin for what the conversation that we've been able to share today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really valuable.
Thanks, guys. So, of course, everyone's experience is going to be a little bit different. The good news is that as one of the largest employers of apprentices in the country, we at Lloyds Banking Group have a lot of experience to draw on. And just because tonight is coming to an end doesn't mean your access to our knowledge stops here. On our Imagine What's Next platform, you can access free learning, join our regular events, find out about work experience, and register for alerts to be the first in the know when we release apprenticeship vacancies. And if you're in the equivalent of year 13, there are apprenticeship vacancies right now for September starts. Imagine how that'll feel going into your exams, knowing you've already got one step of your future in the bag.
But the other great thing with Imagine What's Next is access to our mentors, which we briefly touched on earlier. Some of those you've met this evening, I believe, including myself and Phil. I think I'm correct in saying that. But many more of our apprentices are on Imagine What's Next as our apprentice mentors. So this means that you can reach out, you can ask those questions you really need answering, but don't want to ask in public. They've been through this. Some have picked up a few battle scars along the way, as talked about this evening, but they really want to make the process easier for you. They're there to help. So the link is in the chat. Please do make sure you make one thing happen this evening and get yourself registered with Imagine What's Next. Like I say, the link is in the chat and in the comments on YouTube.
Ollie, we could keep going all evening, I reckon, but the producer is telling us we need to wrap up. So don't forget, we'll be back at 5 p.m. tomorrow for Wednesday's Career Live Daily Download, catching up with events around the country and more insight and guidance from apprentices. If you miss anything this week, don't forget you can catch it all on our Lloyds Career YouTube channel. Next month on Lloyds Careers Live, we'll be exploring careers in technology engineering. But for this month, thanks to our guests, and we'll see you soon.
Love to work at
LPG.
So it was the feeling that I got when I was welcomed by my team.
Helping people in the most vulnerable of moments.
There's always like some activities going on, fun activities.
Honestly, I actually really can't appreciate everyone enough.
When I joined the group, the first day itself was very warm and welcoming.
And fun as well, a bit of fun too when you were doing the learning and stuff. And
everybody's welcoming, warm, you feel at home.
Satisfaction when you finish the call and somebody's like, thank you, you've helped so much, just makes your day a little bit better.
It's just been very enlightening to have a team that actually supports me and gets me going and ready for work. I've never really had that before.
As a bit of a nerd, the technology is really appealing.
The systems, they're easy to learn.
I really do love it here, and the people are great, everyone is great, coming to the office is great.
My training was genuinely fantastic. It set you up for success.
You are free to express yourself.
There's a lot of stuff to do in Lloyds that outside of work.
I found the opportunities available very exciting.
It was easier to do the training with people that you can kind of get on with and have a laugh with.
There is always something that I learn every single day I'm at work.
I felt included from the start. It was really professional, really efficient.
I really enjoy the emphasis placed on personal growth and development.
Every avenue's open, it's very friendly, people are willing to talk and share what they do.